Hello and welcome to Cyber Sidekicks, the best weekly cybersecurity podcast you are ever going to hear anywhere in the world. I'd like to welcome you. It's Rory Duncan, and joining me today is our co-host,
Christina Richmond. Hey, we did it. We moved to video, Rory.
I know. It's incredible. I can hardly believe it. It's not the first video we've ever done, of course. We did a whole bunch at RSAC in 2025 and then earlier this year, 2026.
We did. But I have a question. I have a question for you, though. You said we've moved to video. Does that mean we're doing it every week, Rory? Because the preparation for you, I'm worried about you, my friend. You know, the hair, the makeup, it's just too much, right?
Yes.
So should we do it maybe once a month like our poll suggested that we do?
Well, I'm open to suggestions, of course,
Okay.
but I think it probably is a good idea to move to video. It seems as if the industry is moving that way. Audio-only podcasts are potentially a thing of the past. But unless anybody objects, who knows? The reaction may be so bad.
It may be so strong.
Yes, it may be. It may be.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining again. Just to remind everybody that our newsletter is available for all of you to sign up to, particularly for those new subscribers. Thank you for subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. You could do so at our website, which is richmondadvisorygroup.com.
Yeah,
Christina,
it's on the homepage.
I saw you published. Yeah, it's on the homepage. I saw
on
you
the
published a
homepage
new
down at
episode.
the bottom. Yeah, sorry, Rory. Did I publish a what? Who?
I can't remember. Did you publish the latest issue? I think you did.
No, it's due out. I used the scheduling function.
Oh, did you?
You saw the test. So I was on track, which as folks who have been listening for a while know, I've either been very late or occasionally accidentally early. So I was right on time. It will come out today at 10 a.m. Pacific time. I did it.
Okay. Fine.
Yes.
Well done. Well, so appreciate that. Thanks to everybody who's signed up for that. And hopefully you'll see it keeps you in the loop about what's happening in the cybersecurity sector. It's also got a bunch of links and things to some of our podcasts, as well as some of the great shorts that Christina did when she was out and about at IBM Think and Cisco and all sorts.
You're underplaying your shorts, though, Rory, because your shorts are they have so much more viewership. There's so much more interest in the great Scotsman that you are. So, yes.
Well, I don't know about that. I think people were horrified to see how ill I was in those shorts.
It could be.
It was the macabre. It was the macabre kind of interest in seeing somebody who was on their last legs.
Yeah, you were kind of ill.
Seen them, folks. I was really sick. So
he was really, really sick. So this week's episode, or this week's issue rather, of the newsletter features a tiny smidge of our AI survey data. So that's just a little teaser. Gives you a little background on our survey and what we saw, kind of an overview. And then it also just calls up our podcast from last week, which was a lot of fun. So tune into that. Sign up for the newsletter if you haven't. It's free. It's weekly. It comes out somewhere between Wednesday and Thursday, depending on how I can get myself sorted.
Okay. And then we've got a busy show this week, as usual. What's on the show?
Okay, so we have a couple of pieces of news, and we do news, frequently. Last week was a special episode where we talked all about one topic. It was agentic threat actors, so ATAs. But this week we're back to our usual format, which is, a couple of news stories. One is about a sandboxed experiment by OpenAI, that led to an autonomous agentic attack on the open source machine learning community, Hugging Face. So, that was interesting. And right on the back of talking about Jade Puffer, I think we're just going to see more and more of these, Rory, faster and faster.
And that story has lit up the internet like nothing else. LinkedIn, everything. Everybody's been talking about
everywhere.
So we'll be talking a little bit about that. The other thing we're going to cover is Sophos released its State of Ransomware 2026 report, which has got some really interesting insights from a whole bunch of IT and cybersecurity leaders across multiple countries. And we like a good survey, don't we?
We do.
Christina?
We do like a good survey. I'm wondering if we could ask one of our friends over there, Eric or Ed or somebody, to come on and yak about that.
That would be
Next
good.
week we have a great guest, but maybe we just have 5 minutes with one of the Sophos team on that. We'll see if they can come.
Yep. And then this week's guest, Christina. Who is this week's guest?
Oh, yeah. We have Paul Mote. He is the VP Solutions Architect at Synack. And so we're excited to talk to them. They're kind of an AI PTAS penetration testing company. They've been around for a while. I covered them when I was at IDC, and it'll be really nice to just hear Paul's perspective on the state of AI and the state of pen testing with AI and just overall what is keeping him up at night. So that'll be kind of fun. Yes,
that would be good. In the show notes, we usually include our guests' LinkedIn profiles, so you can go say hi to them or connect, whatever. Yeah. I noticed that his description, he includes Squirrel Chaser as an aspect of his personality or his job or something.
Skill? Is that a reference?
Is it a trait? Is it a feature? I don't know.
Is that a reference to ADD? You know, squirrel?
I don't know. Squirrel. I don't know.
Or is it a reference to hunting the bad guys in a pen testing engagement? Could be.
Well, or it might actually be squirrels. We'll have to ask him, won't we?
We'll ask him. I hope it's not actually squirrels, Rory.
No, squirrels. Well, let's get cracking with the news. And then the one news story nobody could get away from this week was the fact that Hugging Face had experienced a cyber attack carried out by agentic AI end to end. And the first one we thought was, another one so soon. As you mentioned, we'd covered this the previous week with Jade Puffer. Our thoughts and our guests' thoughts were, that's Michael Clark who came on, was, is this the start of something? Probably. Is this something that is inevitable? Pretty much. Could it happen again? Yeah, definitely. But
and
this
then
was
boom.
Yeah, boom. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that happened, and it's been covered in a number of different places. But I think it's kind of not all is not what it seems, perhaps, because
really?
it turned out, and I'm going to share the story here. It turns out that actually, this was a kind of a sandbox experiment by OpenAI. They were testing out some new models, and the new models were so willing to please that they found a vulnerability, exploited it, went out onto the open internet and figured, well, Hugging Face is probably a really good place to go to get the resources I need to solve this. And they're calling it an unprecedented incident. In terms of, state-of-the-art cyber capabilities, is what OpenAI said. So they believe that this type of incident is going to become more commonplace as models and so on become more capable. However, it does turn out, it's further down in this article here, that, Hugging Face weren't completely freaked out by this. Clément Delong said that the attack was mind-blowing, but we believe there was no malicious intent from OpenAI.
Well, thank goodness for that.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it does turn out that, in fact, they're still friends, and they are not kind of hating on each other, and they're going to kind of work together to see how they can, see what safeguards can be put in place to make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen again. That's good to know. It's a pretty positive outcome, I would say. I don't know about you, Christina, but the cynical part of me, because of course,
right,
is I'm slightly suspicious. If you think about the whole Mythos moment, right, which we've covered ad nauseum, that was a case of, we've created this model that's so powerful, nobody can use it.
Nobody can have it. It's, oh my goodness, the mystique. Yes.
Exactly. And it's Project Glasswing, and we can only let certain people have it. And it really took the world by storm. Is this OpenAI's Mythos moment? They created something that sort of escaped, and it's so powerful.
Well,
Is it?
yeah, but it's kind of, it's not the genie in the box, though.
No.
It's the genie got out.
Yes, the genie got
And
out.
it could be the marketing, hype
Mm-hmm.
for them. And you are a suspicious little mind.
I am.
But you're right. It could be that. And of course, now they're friends still and they're
Yeah.
partnering. And
Yeah.
who knows? And we'll never know, Roy. But yeah, it's a good thing to kind of question, I guess.
Yeah. I think there was a number of commentators on LinkedIn who have questioned this, how much of how powerful really was this model in terms of what it was doing? Was it really just, Slack sandbox management on behalf of those who are running the experiment, because they perhaps should have seen that this exploit would be used? In the same way that for Mythos, the question was, well, if you point enough resource at a specific application or part of an application, you'll perhaps find vulnerabilities that have never been found before. So, I'm slightly questioning that, but maybe maybe it will come out eventually. It'll all kind of come out in the wash.
Kind of like the JFK conspiracy theories. They haven't come out yet, Rory, and that's 63 years ago.
Yeah, well, I think we're still probably, I know many people are still waiting for the Project Glasswing report. They were going to do an interim report to talk about what their findings were. And I think it's something like Adrian Sanabria, who, of course, friend of the show, and both of us have worked with him in the past, keeps posting, well, that's 90 days since they said it was going to come out, and that's 100 days since it's going to come out. So I don't know. It'll eventually come out. Well, let's move on from that, Christina.
Okay, let's look at the next one.
Yeah.
So you read through the Sophos report, you wonderful soul, you. So what's the good, the bad, and the ugly there?
Yeah, so it caught my attention partly because it's a report. We love the Sophos reports as we do with the IBM ones, and everybody who does a kind of a regular yearly report. Partly because it was about ransomware, which of course we've been talking a lot about recently, particularly because of the way that AI agents are starting to be weaponized in that direction and so on. And it's not the first time that AI has been used, but they're getting more sophisticated. But I wanted just to see where things were going, where the stats were going. Some things, and I think my analysis was, some things change, some things stay the same, right? And you'll hear that a lot. I know you've talked a lot about that. Some of the old problems will always be old problems until they're fixed. The new problems just kind of keep adding on top. So, highlights. Ransomware recovery costs remain high. The typical recovery bill is now $1.7 million.
And actually, that feels low to me in a way. I know it's high. I guess I've become inured to high dollar amounts. And that feels, it's average, right? That's the average. Yeah. So I guess that's right. Because you hear of some ransomwares that are much higher, but it's changing. I mean, ransomware, we've seen in some of the reports in this last year that ransomware is on the decline. Does Sophos, does their report also say this?
Well, what they do say, even though the recovery bill is still pretty high, the number of demands and the number of payments being made as a result of that is declining.
Okay.
So, they conclude that organizations are getting much better at negotiating the outcomes, right? So over the past 2 years, they say, the median demands have declined 65% and payments have dropped 62%. That's quite significant.
So it's not the number of ransomwares. It's that the demands are decreasing and the payments are decreasing. So let me just hark back to when we had Heath Renfro on the show. It was 2 episodes ago. Phoenix 24, they're a recovery company, not DFIR, not the digital forensics incident response, but they are recovery. They're the cleanup on aisle 3, if you will. And he talked a lot about resilience. So if we are going to be hit by ransomware, which it's not an if, it's a when and how often. Maybe it's on the decline, but I still wouldn't hedge your bets on that one. So if you're going to be hit by ransomware, it is a really good idea to make sure that you know where your backups are and that you have your asset management in place. And he harped on that a lot. And he told us the title of our newsletter 2 weeks ago was, I think it was 2 weeks ago, maybe it was last week, 85% of backups are gone.
Yep,
85%. So, I mean, folks, if Sophos is seeing that maybe the number of ransomwares, maybe it's on the decline, maybe payments and demands are on the decline, but still it's an issue. So make sure your backups and your asset management capabilities are practiced, not just in place, but practiced.
There was two conclusions or two recommendations I thought were quite interesting.
Okay.
Because there is the expectation that, AI and AI agents will up the number of ransomware attacks but specifically where the root cause is an exploited vulnerability, back to exploiting vulnerabilities, because the AI agents are very eager to please their masters or operators, and therefore will find a vulnerability and kind of get in that way. So the recommendation from Sophos was all about strengthening endpoint protection, particularly on defenses that they say automatically block exploit-based attacks. So that's the point that they see as being critical. The second point is less, let's say, technological, but is more organizational. And they say it's important that all parts of the organization are joined up. In other words, when defenses operate together rather than in their silos, the results improve. So again, this is an old problem, right? Everybody doing everything in isolation doesn't work. Again, back to your point about what he said on our episode of Phoenix 24, it's a good idea for security folk to have better understanding about IT operations and vice versa.
It is. I would also point out, I mean, I like Sophos a lot. I like their products. I think their MDR capabilities are great. And they're an email security and MDR company. And they do a lot of really good defense. I would say that's a hammer and nail statement, though, to say focus on your endpoints. Yes, focus on your endpoints. But then Cisco would come in and say, hey, we're all about the network. And where do agents live? They live in the browser through the network. So if you can find an agent creating some malicious activity in the network, you can stop it there. So there's all different layers of this defense in depth, if you will. We're back to defense in depth with AI. Everything old is new again and still important. And unfortunately, what we've done with everything old is we've increased the speed and the accuracy of the threat actor. Hopefully, we're matching that with our defenses as well with AI. So everything old is new, but faster, right?
Yes. I wish I was faster, given that I'm old.
I wish, I know. Everything old is new, but
everything old
not
is slow.
faster. It's slow. Everything old is slow. How come we don't get that benefit? Yeah.
I think we need a new AI neural network or something.
I do. I know
robotics.
I do. Yeah,
Fine.
I do.
Fine. Great. So our special guest this week is Paul Mote, who's the VP Solutions Architect at Synack. Hey, welcome to the show, Paul. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me on, Rory. Thanks for having me on, Christina. Looking forward to it.
Hey, well, and thank you so much for being our guinea pig guest this week as we learn the wonderful functions of Riverside, but also some of the surprises. So thank you for joining us and doing the video podcast. It's our first of a monthly series that we will have. So thank you so much for joining us for this.
It wouldn't be tech without some experimentation, right?
Great. I had one question before we kick things off. I noticed on your LinkedIn profile, under description, you had Squirrel Chaser. So we had a debate earlier. Is literal or figurative?
I think if you caught me in a park, I'd probably be literally chasing squirrels because I think they're interesting.
That's surprising.
Interesting animals. There's YouTube
Okay.
videos of how you can give them an obstacle course and they'll find their way through it to get to the
Mm,
food that they need to get to. It's pretty fascinating, but it's more along the lines of a constant tinkerer. So, I'm always chasing the shiny, the new interesting thing. What does that mean? How does it apply? How
uh,
does it work? Usually other people have to pull me out and say, "You're going a little too deep. You need to come back to reality."
mhm.
There's not an applicable use of this particular technology that you're digging into right now. It's cool that you're interested in it, but come back to the human
Come
world
back.
for us
Come
a
back
little bit.
and do the real work. I
So we
love
were
that
both
because, yeah,
we
I
were
was like,
both
is it
right, weren't we? Yeah, we
we
were both
both
right,
right?
Christina.
Well, I was
Yes.
thinking, is it a reference to ADD? A little bit, right? Always chasing the shiny. A reference to, testing and wanting to find the adversary and digging through whatever it is that one digs through, right, to find the adversary, and maybe, but also new tech. So that's fun.
Mm.
I find myself going down squirrel holes or rabbit holes quite frequently. So I'm glad to hear that you're a tinkerer in the broadest meaning of the word.
It's been
That's
that way since
great.
I was a kid. I'm like, how does
Yeah.
this remote work? One thing I found out when I was younger is sometimes you take things apart. It's not always easy to put them back together. So never take apart anything that's really important or anything if you're a kid that your parent cares about. It's not advised.
So my
Mm.
husband took apart an entire motorcycle while his parents were in Italy one summer. He was 16, 17, bought a used motorcycle, took it down to the nuts and bolts, and learned a very important lesson. You have to document how you're taking said object apart so that you can put it back together in reverse.
It's like one of those
Oh,
famous
he was,
videos where like, I had
yeah,
three screws left over. It's great.
yeah,
Like,
Mhm.
yeah.
okay.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Well, listen, so I'm curious, we tossed the softball question over to our guests and today is no exception. Easy peasy. What keeps you up at night, Paul? What's bugging you these days?
Yeah, I think it's probably a lot of the same of what a lot of security execs are worried about. I kind of think of it on a broader like economic scale, but it's how are we as an industry, but internationally going to resolve some of these issues that we have? And I think of the kind of built up tech debt around patching, like things that could have been fixed but never
Yeah.
were, and now because we thought that they weren't going to be at risk, but now they are. There's all these processes that make it hard to fix those things anyway. And now you have this evolution of AI that's making everything faster.
Hmm.
And then we're seeing, I mean, there's lots of newsworthy things happened in the last few weeks, obviously, that prove that the wrong implementation of AI or the wrong operator of the AI can take those things that we have intentionally left vulnerable and all of a sudden make them a major impact to society or to a company. And those are the things that
Yeah.
just, my brain continually spins in that space.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I mean, patching has been something we've been harping on my entire career in security. I'm sure your entire career in security. And it's the boring bits, right? It's the pieces and parts that we don't want to do because there's the squirrel chasing that's more interesting, either in tech or in adversarial hunt or in whatever. And so the patching is boring, number one. Number two, there's the IT and security relationship. And we've all been in therapy for a long time with our IT friends, and we're
Yes.
doing better. But now we have to solve that relationship like yesterday, right? So it's a challenge. And I think you're also correct that AI speeds it up to the point where we need the machine speed of doing the boring bits, which we haven't perfected yet. We're working on
Mhm.
it as an industry because otherwise we can't keep up with the machines that are starting to get really good at attacking us with their video game human behind the scenes, right?
Yeah, and I also think there's like there are vertical related challenges. Like, going all the way back to my early cyber career as a defender, we had networks that had human support life support systems that
Yeah.
maybe they needed a patch, but you couldn't really just patch them, even though you knew they were vulnerable because the patch would effectively break the device. And if it breaks the device, well, then you lose the
Mm,
patient. So there's
Yeah.
all these types of networks in different segments like healthcare and logistics that are just like saying apply the patch simply doesn't work because
yeah.
it's like you're kind of having to juggle the risk of like, do I risk being compromised or do I risk patching the device and it breaking and having the same outcome as if I was compromised? It's almost as if in some of those scenarios, almost getting compromised would be a better outcome than patching the device and losing the patient. So, that's like in terms of weighing the risk, which I'm glad
Yeah.
I don't have to weigh that risk, but it's the
Yeah.
juggling act that a lot of industries are having to face right now.
So this is things like pacemakers and other devices that keeping people alive.
Yep, you could think of, pumps in hospitals. You could think of, I mean, you kind of go all the way back to like the ransomware attack on the pipeline on the East Coast of the US years back, right? It was one of those
Yeah.
that
Right.
like normally it's off limits, but all of a sudden it wasn't off limits anymore. And because it wasn't off limits, it impacted everyone for a long time,
Mhm.
right? We're still feeling the impacts of it, technically.
So, what do you think a possible solution is? And it's a terrible question, and I apologize, but we like we like to play with it because there are so many startups that think they have solutions, right?
Mhm.
Because everything old is new again, and we've harped on that in this episode so far. Everything old is new again, except for us. We're just old. We would like some robotic new neural networks, we've decided. But if we could create a world where the patching happens without us having to pay attention to it, but doesn't break something, what would
Mhm.
that look like? I mean, have you squirreled that at all in your research?
I have. I actually wrote an article,
Oh,
I don't know, a
perfect.
month or two ago that was basically, we bought our way into this problem. We're going to have to
Yeah.
spend more to get out. And it's the hard truth that over the years, we've had these systems that we knew were vulnerable, but the likelihood of exploitation was just not there. And so we deferred those changes because if you want somebody to go fix something, they got to go test it and make sure that if they apply it, it doesn't break the thing that they're fixing. Because if it breaks the thing
Right.
they're fixing, then it defeats the purpose of what you're trying to do. So there's a
Right.
constant business risk problem. But that whole ecosystem is wrapped around a governance ecosystem that we've created. Change control, right? And change control takes a really long time.
Yep.
And so I think there's going to be this kind of reckoning where folks are going to have to take a step back and look at it and say, what's the right level of acceptable risk toward patching? Because I think in an end state, you're going to have continuous automated response. If you don't, you're going to always be behind. This latest incident that happened on Friday that was announced, that's a great example of where, if you don't have autonomous things responding to other autonomous things, it can get much
Mhm.
further into its sequence. And by the time you really engage and start working through it, you're way behind and you're just hoping it doesn't continue down its path, right? I think in the case of like the breach that happened last on Friday that was announced, the autonomous
Yeah.
agent
Tell
that
us. Tell us about it. Tell us about the breach,
yeah,
please.
so on Friday of last week, Hugging Face, which is
Oh,
basically like you can think of it like a
Yeah.
yeah.
marketplace for
We
OpenAI
we
models.
actually talked about that earlier in the
Yes, we
show,
were
but
just
please
talking
tell
about
us
that.
tell us your perspective. This is
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I mean, they're basically like the clearinghouse, like the open source world of
Yeah.
like how do you get all these
Mhm.
local AI models to your computer if you want to do AI local. And so they announced they were compromised, right? It was over the weekend. An autonomous agent broke in, uploaded data sets, moved nodes, established C2, stole data, all the good stuff. And so they went,
And it was
it's,
somehow with OpenAI, right?
that,
OpenAI
that
turned
was
out
the
to be responsible.
that was
Yeah.
the end twist. So,
Yeah.
they're trying to use AI to respond to the breach and they couldn't. So they had to use a local model because the guardrails of the frontier models prevented them from responding to the breach. They eventually solved the breach, published their findings, and then yesterday it broke that OpenAI announced that they were the ones that compromised Hugging Face because they took AI and some of these frontier models and they put it in an isolated environment and said they wanted it to perform with no guardrails to
Mm.
compete against a cyber benchmark challenge, like prove how good you are in cyber.
Mhm.
And it was so good that it defeated the controls of the isolation. It found internet access, which it wasn't supposed to have. And it determined that the best source of the information it wanted was Hugging Face. And so it autonomously, without direction, compromised Hugging Face, stole the data. And I think it's important to note that it's not intentionally saying, I want to harm Hugging Face or
Right.
that Hugging Face was the
It was
target.
just the best path.
It was the best path,
Yeah.
the best data to
Yeah.
accomplish the mission that it wanted, which it mirrors what happened at Alibaba in February, where the AI created, it siphoned compute off of resourcing around it, and eventually established its own crypto mining operation because it needed more resourcing that it had access to. And it's
Mm-hmm.
the conversation of the kind of the autonomous piece of it. So when you start thinking of kind of these autonomous functions, they're not going to wait for your change control process, like kind of tying it back
Mm-mm.
No.
together. And so I think you need that continuous autonomous defense. You're going to have to find some level of acceptable autonomous continuous patching or blocking or something. But that only gets you in a reactive state, almost like triaging the patient. Hey, we have an incident and people need care. Like that's the answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
real
So
Go ahead, Rory. Sorry, I don't mean to
yeah,
keep
I was
going.
just going to say, so yeah, continuous automated defense is required because of continuous automated attack, right? So it's one kind of begets the other. From a pen testing perspective, just trying to think, going forward, where do you think this is going? Clearly, we've talked a lot, and our guests have talked a lot on the show about the opportunities and the threats that AI poses, both for defense and attack. From a pen testing perspective, where do you think that's going to lead this industry? And the reason I'm asking is because Christina and I discussed this idea of this kind of renaissance of the pen testing industry, enhanced by all the tools available. So where do you see things going? Oh,
Yeah, obviously it's today we're an offensive security company, so that's kind of where we live all day, every day.
Yeah.
I might be a
mm.
little biased, but I started as a defender, so I like to counterbalance the bias, saying I was a defender before I became on the red side of the house. Over the last 10 years, I think what's interesting in the conversations I've been having with clients is that you do have to do this autonomous defense. You also still have regulatory needs. You still have to do pen testing, and you have to have
Mm-hmm.
humans in that
Right.
process for most of the regulations. But
Mm-hmm.
you have this sprawling attack surface that is just growing exponentially because your developers, including people who, like everyone is a developer, just to be clear, like you and Rory and Christina, you could both write an app and publish it to the internet today. And
Yep.
you probably wouldn't know that either of you did it because you could do it that fast and it looks really good and everything else. And organizations have to deal with that. And so the attack surface is sprawling really quickly. And so the conversation that we have is, one, you need to know what everything is that you have on the internet. You need that continuous attack surface management because you can't, that whole old saying of you can't defend what you don't know about, it really does exist.
Yep.
The second piece is that you need continuous offensive pressure to figure out where the holes are proactively. If you're just waiting for the adversary to find and exploit the holes, that's a really poor environment to work and live in. You're just praying
Yeah.
that you like the whole army is there and you're just hoping that none of them get through. But the
So
end state where we push customers to is you got to get data. You need to have the
good.
full coverage. You got to get the surface pressure. You got to look at the data because the data was where you can dig into the trends. And when I say trends, I mean, how did it get there? What's the root cause? Because in a
Mm.
future where the AI that's attacking you never stops, you need to make sure that you eradicate the introduction of vulnerabilities. And maybe you're writing poor code yourself. Maybe you're buying poor code from vendors. There's a lot of choices that we normally we don't go into those discussions, but really it's the
Mm-hmm.
discussion I think we have to start getting into is how do you prevent them from being introduced to the first place? Otherwise, it's a never-ending game where you're always at a disadvantage.
So there's a lot that you just said.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And
Am I going too fast? That's the
no,
squirrel
no,
chase
no,
for me.
no, you're not going too fast at all. It's great. Um, I have so many questions about it that my brain kind of came to a screeching halt, like, "Rrrr," there's probably a sound effect for that, Rory, where
Oh yeah,
Christina's
I
brain
wouldn't do
blows
it.
up.
Well, I think it's probably overheating.
Yeah.
Paul, Christina was saying it hit 100 there in East Washington
Yesterday.
State, which is just crazy. So I find it difficult to think when it's hot. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's early.
yeah,
It's
it
early,
is
so it's
also
not hot
early.
yet. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
not as hot. But so I'm trying to find some things that I've read about or learned about where there are the abilities to temporarily patch, to find a vulnerability, to prioritize it, and then put a patch on it. It might be just reconfiguring something. So somebody gave me the example of, oh, this was configured to always give you revenue to a certain level, but it hadn't accounted for the minus $. And if you put in a minus $sign and say that you want to exfiltrate that amount, it would let you exfiltrate that amount. It didn't recognize the minus, right? So you patch. It's not really a patch technically, but you patch in order to stop that behavior. So that's one thing I've read about. Another thing was announced at Cisco Live, where they actually are doing virtual patching on the fly. And I don't really understand it yet, full disclosure, but I'm wondering how we prioritize which patches when, because the agents and LLMs will find what's useful to them, and we may not have prioritized it. So
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, this is like the kind of the melting point that everybody is having going to have to really face, which is, we built these scoring systems to say this vulnerability is common vulnerability scoring system. It's a low criticality all the way through a high.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't work. It wasn't enough for us to deal with prioritization. So then we included, Homeland Security in the United States. They have the known exploitable vulnerabilities list. So they say, oh, this vulnerability is being used in the wild. So even if it's a medium, it's more important. And then that didn't cover everything either. And so now we have the predictive score in the EPSS that says what's the likelihood of it being exploited. So we have all these metrics that we've created to try to answer the question that you're tilting at, which is like, how do I prioritize all these things?
Yeah.
The reality is that none of those metrics take into account somebody saying, I want you as AI to focus on this one vulnerability that has an EPSS of 0%. It's not on the KEV list, but everybody has it. It really can't account for that. And so
Yeah.
Yeah.
they're going to
And I mean,
really good for
yeah, thanks. I was going to say it comes back to the question about, do we really understand what they're doing? And even the makers of the models will sometimes say, well, I don't know. What makes it make that choice?
Yeah.
Some of them are logical decisions, some are not. Some are tangential to how humans would approach solving a task. The only thing we know is it's the end goal that they're given, and they figure it out somehow in between. That's where the kind of magic is. Some people say, they swear that that's the intelligence, right? Others would say, well, clearly not. But we still don't know their thought processes as agents clearly enough to determine what they're going to do. And that's not doom mongering, which is my usual stance. It's really just saying, how do we understand what they think to get to those end goals?
Yeah. And I think trying to prioritize which vulnerabilities are going to be exploited and which ones aren't is kind of a losing game. I think
Yeah.
the conversation of having to block everything as you see activity to it is more than likely what's going to be required. How organizations reconcile with that, it'd be challenging, right? I'll give you an example. We had a 0-day, I think all the way back in 2017, that one of our Synack Red team members had created in a well-known commercial product. It basically fully compromised the entire system. And this system is a piece of software that was used by every organization around the world. Basically, if you had people working for you, you use this software in your environment. And in that, the logical in this conversation context, we would say, well, okay, just maybe create a web application firewall rule or a
Right.
firewall, some other rule that just prevents people from accessing that vulnerability until we can figure out the patch. Problem is, there wasn't a patch for it yet.
Mm-mm.
But if you blocked that path, it didn't work anymore. So you could no longer manage any of the functions required by law for the people that you manage. And so that's one of those, like, you can't just block it. You have to figure out
No.
what you want to do. And so I think there's different levels of patching, kind of going to where I think you were trying to go to, Christina. What are the different ways people could think about patching? It can be at the network level. It could be at the code level. I think everyone is really hard pressed to not do code level patching, even though that's where the problem is.
Mm-hmm.
Because the fear is that I'm going to apply that patch and then some functionality will no longer work that is
Yeah.
critical to my bank transfers or something.
I am starting to see startups do this. So that you just hit the exact nugget that keeps me up at night. I'm seeing startups that are going, maybe only a few, that are going full bore towards CI/CD, inserting themselves in the dev process, using LLMs and agents to help them identify where something has opened a vulnerability, was not coded properly, and they're inserting new code. They test before they go into production, but I'm still cringing because I don't trust the machines enough yet. I don't think they're good enough. So what, tell me I should get off the ledge, Paul, or tell me I should stay right on the ledge.
Well, yeah, there was a vulnerability that came out in an open source piece of software, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I'm drawing a blank on the name of it, but it was basically 3 patches to the code base created a new vulnerability. So every patch was implemented.
Created a new vulnerability.
Yeah, sure.
So the underlying code was vulnerable, but it wasn't actionable, or you couldn't do anything with the vulnerability. You could look if you knew where to find it in the source code, you would have seen it 15 years ago. And it was implementations to fix vulnerabilities that came out over the course of 3 or 4 years. And on the last fix they applied, it finally exposed the underlying vulnerability that then became a mass panic. It's like, oh no, now this vulnerability exists, but it exists because of 3 previous patches that we had to apply to the software. And so I don't know if there's a great mixture. I know there's a lot of smart people tilting at it. So I do have faith in humanity, and we'll figure out how to make that happen, of course. But it's a really tough challenge because it's just as much a business problem as it is a cyber problem.
I love that.
Indeed.
And I actually think that's a good place to stop and to let Paul, go back to his real work, because this has been a fascinating conversation, Paul, and we could probably talk much longer and really dig into all of the anxieties that I have. We could do some therapy around AI and vulnerabilities and patch management, but we should let you get back to real world stuff and also squirrel hunting. So
squirrel hunting, indeed. And it was good to hear the words that you have faith in humanity. That certainly makes us feel a little bit better. So thanks,
much better.
Thanks for that. Much better.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thanks so much for coming on and being our first guest on the video. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you both. Paul. Appreciate you having me on.
Hey, bye-bye.
Bye now.
Well, that was a great discussion, Christina. Always fantastic to have a guest on, particularly Paul, somebody who knows what they're talking about and is very interested and passionate in their work and the cybersecurity sector.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed Paul. It was fun to hear about his perspective in the world of PTAS, which when we were talking about everything old is new again, pen testing is having a resurgence. It is coming out. It's, PTAS gave it new life a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago, and that was a big deal. But now with AI, it's replacing vulnerability management, in my opinion. So it was great to have Paul talk about AI in pen testing. So thanks again, Paul, for coming on. We really appreciated you joining us.
Yes, the renaissance of pen
the
testing.
Renaissance,
Very good.
the renaissance, if you want. Yes.
Absolutely. And with that, we should probably wrap the show.
Oh, yeah.
What's happening next week, Christina? Who do we have on?
So we have Jim LaRue, who is the CEO of Symphion, coming on. And this is an interesting one. So this really talking again about old and new and all of that. When I first joined IDC a million years ago, I covered about 14 or 15 different technologies through the lens of the channel.
Right.
And one of the technologies was printers. So we do talk printers. We meet with printer manufacturers and go to their events and we learn from them what they're doing to help people not even notice the security running behind the scenes, because printers are a huge vulnerability. And so Jim is going to talk about printers and AI and where the vulnerabilities are and how we can defend against them. So that should be really interesting. I'm looking forward to that.
Yes, don't write off printers, folk. Remember when it said, when the industry was saying, oh, it's going to be the paperless office. How many years ago was that? Like 40 years or something
We're still waiting.
Yeah, we're still waiting. Well, and if anybody would you like to give us some feedback? We always value your feedback. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can do so by email to me.
But But
Oh.
I'm going to really suggest people use info@richmondadvisorygroup.com
Oh, I see.
because nobody's messaging us.
Oh,
Everybody knows us by our
see.
personal emails. And
Right.
yes, you can
Okay.
reach out to us. Fine. You have our emails. But if you don't, reach out to us at info@richmondadvisorygroup.com. Please, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, we certainly would. And with that, we'd like to thank you very much for listening and watching.
And
for
watching.
the first time. And we look
Yeah.
forward to you joining us again next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.